It's the Direct Response Podcast with your host, Travis Ketchum, founder of Campaign Refinery, joined today with David Cartolano from Wealthy Inbox. Hey, man.
Hey, Travis.
So this is right up your alley. This is like catnip for David,
Oh,
is
it's
what
easy.
today's deal is. And this is about how to monetize a newsletter. Now, you being the newsletter guy, obviously I'm going to let you rock with this, and I'm going to have maybe a little tidbits here and there from what I picked up in the email game and building a business, whatever. But this is going to be your show, man. So I'm coming to this question with the mindset that someone who's trying to solve how do I make money on my newsletter has probably, I'll kind of set the foundation here, has probably been in a situation where they've set up their email system, they've acquired newsletter subscribers, they've done the hard work of convincing people to sign up for the newsletter, they're sending content on a regular basis, it's growing, they have an audience that's getting up there, but they're like, wait, okay, I did all this hard work. Why is the money not just falling from the sky and burying me in profits? What do I do to make money from my newsletter? And so in that situation, David, with that context, let it rip. What can people do to actually turn that audience into dollars?
Right. So if you have an audience, and I'm just going to paint the picture, if you have an audience of moms, and those moms, you have a blog and you help them with meals that don't make their children hyperactive. You got 10,000 people. All you've been doing is writing recipes for the past 3 years. And you're like, I kind of want to do this full time. The first thing that you have to understand is your newsletter is not a newsletter. It's a bunch of eyes. So a bunch of people, if you have a 60% open rate, that means if you send out recipes every single day, there are 6,000 people constantly looking at your newsletter. So you can see your newsletter as a billboard. So there's plenty of ways to monetize, but the most common thing I see in the newsletter industry is, how do I get a sponsor? How do I get somebody who would be willing to take their product and put it in front of my audience? Because it's really a game of offers and audience. You can have an audience and promote somebody's offer. You can have your own offer and promote it to somebody else's audience. You can, oh God, I'm going to get lost. You can, okay.
The worst scenario is to only have one of those things though, right?
Well, as long as you have a partnership with somebody else and the terms are favorable for you, you can go your whole life without having an audience and just having an offer. Now, I think it'd be exhausting. I don't think it'd be fun. And I think
what I meant by that is only having access to one of those things.
There you go.
That would be a better phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have an audience, then there are companies that are willing to pay, provided the audience is big enough or niche enough and targeted enough in order for them to justify spending, it could be $1 a click, $1 a subscriber, just brand exposure. So I don't want to dive too deep into like, hey, how do I get a sponsor? Because that is not the goal of this podcast. But if you are a mom with a blog with 10,000 people and you send out recipes every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, just strange sending cadence, but I guess that's what you do. And the first thing that you want to do is monetize. You say, okay, well, first thing is you could find a sponsor. Second thing you can do to monetize a newsletter, see it as a product. See it as a way to get other newsletters exposure to your audience. Because in the media game, there's something that's known as co-registrations or co-reg. And there are platforms out there like Sparkloop, there are platforms out there like Beehive, and more than I can probably name, of places where if somebody signs up for your blog, I keep saying blog, but your newsletter, and they give in their email address, a window will pop up and say, hey, would you like to sign up to this newsletter, and that newsletter? And all they have to do is click. And when they click and sign up for someone else's newsletter, you can get paid for doing so. And that's what's known as co-registration. I would be very careful of that, though, because if you get a subscriber who signs up for 5 other newsletters and yours, they're not likely to read yours, or if you're number 3 or 4 on the list. So co-registration, it is a way you can make money. That's cool. I would be very careful though. Some people like they only build a newsletter business based off of co-registrations and inline placement ads, and to me, that's a bubble waiting to pop. You have to
Now,
be
I,
very careful.
I want to call something out here, though, on the monetization aspect, because this is really great to make money at the point of subscription, but it doesn't necessarily
Correct.
monetize the content you're sending on a regular basis. Now,
Hmm.
that to me, as a marketer, sounds like a great way to offset your acquisition costs. But and so that is technically monetization, but that may or may not be what people think about when they think about monetizing the newsletter itself. They're monetizing like the ingestion point, and that's kind of a one-time money, one-time monetization. Is that a correct understanding of what you're trying to
That's
describe?
correct. Yeah, it's a great way of offsetting lead acquisition. But what's the long-term cost? You have to be careful. So that's number two. To get into now like how to monetize the newsletter on a recurring basis. So one of the things that people will commonly do is have a paid subscription tier of their newsletter. And I have to say, a lot of these are a little strange. If you're sending out an email on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, strangely, for recipes to help moms out with their hyperactive kids, if you said, yeah, paid tier, you get an email on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it's a little weird. It's like, well, why wouldn't you just do that? So I see people do that with their paid subscriptions where it's like, do you want more of the same email? People do that. I don't suggest doing that. I would say for a paid subscription, I would put people into a community. And that could be a Facebook group, that could be a school community, circle, whatever you want. But I would try and make your newsletter a stepping stone to a community. And that's something that I have planned for a B2C newsletter that I'm growing. But that's way down the line because this one takes a lot of work. Number four would be to have your own product. So if you have recipes, if you help people out with recipes, why not just put it in a book? You could put it in a physical book. You can create a course out of it. Um, that's totally up to you. The newsletter, though, I like building it on number three and number four rather than number one and number two because now you're treating it like a business. And a newsletter really is, I like to think of it as product zero of a business. The first product they buy isn't the recipe book that you sell, it's the newsletter. They pay for it with their email address, and every sale you make is to get them to open the next one. That is your product zero. So that's one of the ways. Those are four common ways. I could probably go into much more detail, but y'all will get bored.
Yeah.
So
Well,
those are the main
yeah,
ways.
stopping boring people is really kind of the key, it would seem like, with your newsletter, right? Like you say product zero, you're selling them to open the next one through
Yeah.
basically infotainment to a certain extent.
Hmm. And
Now,
I have to say, if you are monetizing your newsletter and you're really serious about it, you gotta make sure the content's good. Oh my gosh, I've seen so many over the past year of people who, they get excited about the newsletter craze. They get a Beehive account. They're like, I'm just going to write content with AI, which is a great idea. But I'm gonna write content with AI and I'm just gonna post it and it's gonna sound like everybody else. I'm not thinking about anybody else. I have no ideal customer. I'm just throwing it out there and I don't even ask them to see if it's good. I don't ask for feedback. And if I do, I put it at the bottom where they get to click like 5 stars, 3 stars, or 1 star. And I'm going to put in inline ads and then I'm going to put in sponsorships. I'm putting co-reg and that's it. Money bags. I've seen so many of those and they're terrible. They're garbage.
low
And
value. Let's at least just call it low value.
you can call it low value. I'm calling it garbage. And the reason, and I say this tongue in cheek because people have so many emails coming in, and if your newsletter is garbage, they're not going to want to keep opening it and keep reading it or buy anything that you have or click on any of the mismatched ads that you want to put in just because you want to make a couple of pennies off of people. So really make sure that you're building a number three. You're building a community via email and really, really focus on making the product good. I know it's obvious, but most people don't do it. They just don't. So that's huge. That is huge.
So, the thing I love about the community aspect, just to kind of go back to that, I've been thinking about it for the last few minutes as you were talking. The thing I love about that is it's clearly delineated as a different product, right? And so, like, when I think about the similarities to how people, for instance, monetize podcasts, because I think that there's some parallels there just from a digital
Yeah.
marketing perspective. And I listen to some regular nerdy tech podcasts, right? And I think about, okay, well, what are they selling, right? What is their upsell? And sometimes it's a community, right? Like, so, for instance, there's one called ATP, Accidental Tech Podcast, and one of my favorites. It's really nerdy, so, shout out to them. But they do a couple things for their paid members, which is they give them extra segments to the podcast episode. They have usually additional topics that they're covering that they call overtime. But then a big draw, in my opinion, for people that are paid subscribers is the community, as you mentioned. So you get to be part of a live Discord while they're recording, right? So you can have a direct influence on the content that comes out. So you feel like you're part of the creation process to a certain extent. So as they're talking about a topic, maybe they get something wrong, maybe they have questions or they're not sure about something. The community is real-time fact-checking them and messaging them as they're recording the session, right? And so you only get to be in that little kind of exclusive club as a super fan who's paying for the entitlement of the extra access, right, and the extra content. But it's such a different product, a different version of the thing. It's not just more of the same thing, perhaps. It's not like,
Yep.
oh, we do 2 episodes a week if you're paid and 1 episode a week if you're unpaid. It's you get different content altogether and you get a different experience as part of the community and other members of the community and other people that think like you and have similar interests and desires as you, interested in technology and solving interesting things. I think that really leads credence to the community aspect for newsletters
Totally.
for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I know you said you didn't want to talk about, getting sponsorships per se, but I think a lot of people probably think of sponsorships as the most direct avenue to money, right? Because they're like, well, I don't have a product. It feels like a lot of work to set up a community. And well, I hate to break it to you, but making money is only because it's hard and it requires some work. But that being said, do you have any recommendations if someone's like, hey, I would like to, even if it's not the most money, are there any plug and play sort of sponsorship networks you can lock into to then put into your newsletter that people can consider at least as a starting point before they think
Yeah.
about direct sponsorship sales and communities and all that? Like basically, is there a copy paste solution where you can at least take the lowest common denominator value of what your newsletter's worth so you can start getting some money flowing as you sort out everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good idea to start with those. That's something that I'm doing, where I'm starting with sponsors that I don't talk to. It is through a platform. So one of the platforms that I use is Beehive, and they have an ad section where if they determine that your audience is a good fit for their sponsors, you can put up their ads inside of your email. Now, not all of them are a good fit for my audience, so I have to decline the ones that aren't a good fit, because why would I send, again, if you're a mom of if you're a mom teaching other moms how to create recipes for their hyperactive kids, why would you put an ad for HubSpot there? Makes no sense. But people do this.
Or
So
Monster energy drinks, or it's
or oh man, don't even get me started. Beehive has in its own platform. It's got native integration to sponsors, live intent. There's a ton. The names escape me because I only use one, because I'm planning to move to a physical product that I own and a community that I own. But yeah, I'm just starting off with Beehive's native integration. Do I have any plans of continuing to use it? No. This is just the beginning, where you want to show people in your newsletter that you do sell things and that this is a newsletter where they will be enticed to buy stuff, and make that very clear from them in the beginning. And if they don't buy it, that's cool. You tell them that as well. Yeah. As far as the different platforms, I would give it a Google. I would give it a Chat GPT. There's plenty that have been around before Beehive, which was kind of like the big lift in this newsletter space. But again, I'd rather focus on 3 and 4 long term,
sure.
because
But it
the
feels like
news.
if
Yeah,
someone's just getting started, though, it feels like a good way to get dollar number one, which is,
yeah,
gets you
yeah,
emotionally invested in and lets you see, okay, there is something here. Now, how can I optimize, expand, ascend, like do all the things and get them all in line? But just getting something going is such a victory for so many people that it just feels like such an
Totally.
easy win for a lot of newsletter users that are trying to make something out of their first newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are plenty of platforms like that. Plenty. Just give them a good Google, give them a good Chat GPT, and choose one.
And we'll
There's,
have links in our article down
yeah.
below as well. So you can always just check out the article and see some of the resources that we have up to date that are linked. Because as you can imagine,
Mhm.
these platforms evolve and expand. They're like bunnies out there. So there's
Yeah.
always lots of good options. So you can check
And
that out down below.
go with a reputable one because a lot of these kind of like automatic billboard companies, they can have really junky ads. Really junky, which is why I say it with like reluctance that I'm telling people about this. So really filter filter the ads that your audience will be seeing because some of them they just look really bad. Like they will destroy your brand's credibility because they look like the kind of thing you'd see at like on a website from 2003 that hasn't been updated and is filled with malware. Okay, so I'm begging you, if you do go down that road, great. Go with ads that look reputable. Go with a company that is reputable because it can get really nasty really fast
And have
and you'll
some kind of
probably get
editorial
blocked.
oversight, it sounds like, too. Like, be picky about who you do. But
Yeah,
getting access to sponsors, especially when you're small and those buyers, they're looking for volumes. They're willing to pick it up in long tail pieces, but they're not going to go make individual deals with small individual newsletters, right? So
precisely.
sounds like a great place to start. Cool. Do
Yeah.
you have anything else to share with them, or is that kind of knock out the main bullet points on how people can monetize their newsletter if they're got the audience but no money coming in?
I would do your numbers. I think a lot of people would jump into, and this, I say a lot of people because I myself was in this boat where, you might want to partner up with, going back to the person we talk about, if you're writing recipes and you're like, well, I serve moms, so I'm going to go to this Shopify store or to this Etsy store, and they have products. I have the audience, they have the products. Great. I'm going to become an affiliate for their products, and they're amazing. It's like, okay, you can most certainly do that. But look at the numbers. If they're giving you 10% of a $3 spatula, is that worth not just your time, but is that worth the very valuable attention of your subscribers and the white space in your email? So just run the numbers and say like, okay, how much money am I really making from this? Is this something that I want to do long term? And if it's not, don't waste the seller's time. So please do the numbers behind things and accept that most newsletters do not make money from the very beginning. So give it time. Focus on creating a great product and do something else in the meantime.
And it's probably worth noting, I'd assume that, I haven't grown a significant newsletter. I've seen a lot of, obviously, email volume. A lot of our customers are not necessarily newsletter providers in the sense that you're referring to. They send content of other types. But when I think about it, like, for instance, in business acquisitions, as you get above certain thresholds, the value at which someone will pay to get access to that or to acquire that, the premium goes up. And so what I'm saying is, as your audience grows in the newsletter, the fact that someone can come make a direct buy deal and they can get enough traffic to move the needle, that is more valuable to them than a bunch of small stuff that may or may not move
Correct.
the needle on sales. Even if
Yeah.
the ROI for their ad spend is technically better, they don't get enough of it. And so they are willing to usually pay, I would assume, a premium for a much larger newsletter to send them a whole bunch of traffic all at once. Is that an accurate
Absolutely.
description?
Yeah, yeah. I describe it this way. It's like, do you have your billboard in front of a small town, or do you have it um, on the way to the Empire State Building? Right? You're gonna get a lot of eyes. So eyes and attention are incredibly valuable. So the more you can get, the better. Unless you are very, very focused. If you have a newsletter on HR managers who are doing over 150K a year, you have a product and there's 7,000 people on the newsletter, and somebody comes up to you and says, wow, what an amazing B2B newsletter. I want to give you $700 for this promotion. You could look at them and go, you can add a zero and we'll talk. because now you know your audience, you know how much money you're making per subscriber, and you can tell people, hey, no, like this is my rate. You're not just getting a billboard. You're getting a TV screen in a five-star hotel that I built from the ground up and I know very well. So, yes, you can go for mass volume. Yes, you can also go for super hyper niche in a B2B lucrative space. So that's up
Yeah.
to you.
I guess to clarify my statement a little bit more, it's not just more eyeballs in general, but more qualified eyeballs that they're looking for,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, especially in those niche ones where it's really hard, like, how hard would it be and how many places would you have to advertise to get 7,000 HR managers that make over 150K a year
Forget
to
about it.
see it, right? It's a very challenging thing. And so, what I'm saying is that by getting them all in one place in one deal, and the fact that it's a simple return in terms of like, I do one transaction, which takes me minutes probably to figure out, sort out, write the paperwork, and sign it. That is so valuable that I'm willing to pay way more per eyeball, even if it's, the same exact people. I'm willing to pay more just because I know I can get the right people in bulk to see my offer. And that is enough volume of the right people to be worth it to me. And so I'm willing to pay a premium for that. That's
Yeah.
how it tends to work, at least in other verticals. So
Yeah. And of course, your newsletter should be as big as possible while maintaining quality, right? That's a big asterisk.
cool. Well, thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge, David. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this was going to be more your episode than mine, and that's all good. We all have our strengths, so thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. If you want to find out more and some of those networks and specifics, definitely check out the content below that our content team has put together and done research and help you find a lot of those resources, many of which David talked about as well. If you're looking for a platform to run your email on, we have Campaign Refinery, which deals with the highly qualified prospects and gets excellent deliverability, but it may or may not be the best fit for your particular thing, especially in the newsletter game. I understand everyone's custom tailored to your specific needs, but check it out and at least have it in consideration. And David, if people want to learn more about you, what you got going on with newsletters and how to get more of this kind of goodness, where should they go?
Yeah. If you want to follow my journey as I grow and scale and sell a newsletter, because I'm more into a how do I grow an asset and a valuable company over how to find a sponsor. There's some people in that space. But if you like the sound of that, you can go to wealthyinbox.com/news and you will see all that I got for you. So I'm in the trenches and just doing this too. So yeah, give it a shot.
Cool. All right. Thanks again.